The stage lights shone brightly. Thousands of phones held high, their blue and white screens flashing like artificial stars. Cheers rose from the sea of people in front of him, surging like a tsunami crashing ashore. Ethan Cole stood in the center, a microphone trembling lightly in his hand, but his voice still rang out, hoarse and full of feeling. This is not the end. The music exploded, the entire audience joining in, tens of thousands of voices becoming one. Ethan closed his eyes slightly, sweat beading on his forehead, soaking into the collar of his white shirt. In that moment, he heard nothing but his own heart pounding. Thud, thud, thud. Then suddenly, a pain like a knife stabbed through his chest. Ethan froze, the microphone slipping from his hand with a keng that echoed on the floor. The whole crowd fell silent for a second, then erupted into chaos. Ethan! Ethan! A few shouts rang out from the front rows. He put his hand to his chest, eyes wide, breathing rapidly. The instruments behind him faltered, then died away. Inside his head, everything spun. The sound of the audience receded, as if someone had just pulled a thick curtain separating him from the world. Thud. One last heavy beat, then emptiness. Ethan's eyes stared wide open, but the stage lights blurred, turning into a dazzling white streak. Shouts, footsteps, manager's screams mixed together, thinning out, thinning out. Call an ambulance! Hurry! A man's voice screamed somewhere near him. He felt his body collapse to the floor, cold. Strangely, he found himself standing up. Right in front of him, a few meters away, a body lay motionless. A familiar face, brown hair in disarray, a white shirt soaked with sweat. It was him. Ethan gaped, but no sound escaped. No, it can't be, he whispered, but the voice only rang in an invisible void. The manager knelt beside that body, tears welling. Ethan! Don't leave us, Ethan. Hang on, you've got your whole career ahead of you. Hastened footsteps, the medical team rushed over. A doctor placed defibrillator paddles on his chest. Clear! Electricity coursed through, the body on the floor convulsed violently. Ethan shivered. He felt vividly as if he himself had been shocked, but his soul still stood there, powerless, watching everything. Time slowed. The screams turned into distorted, elongated sounds, like echoes from a very distant place. The stage light was no longer brilliant, but became a wide, white halo, like a door, waiting for him to step through. He turned back and saw tens of thousands of fans below, crying silently, calling his name. A little girl hugged a sign that read, "Ethan, my light," her eyes brimming with tears. The scene pierced his heart like a blade. He wanted to run to them, to say, "I'm still here," but with every step he took, that other body grew more distant, while the halo drew nearer, and then everything went dark. Only one question reverberated in his mind. Is this death, or just the beginning of another journey? 2 days before the fateful concert, New York City at midnight still glowed as bright as day. Rows of yellow lights stretched along the avenues, blending with car horns, music spilling out from bars, and the clacking of shoes on the sidewalks. On the 25th floor of a luxury hotel, Ethan Cole sat silently by the window, a glass of untouched wine in hand. The neon lights outside reflected in his eyes, glittering but weary. He drew in a long breath, resting his head against the sofa. On the table, his phone buzzed non-stop with hundreds of messages, emails, and notifications from fans and partners. But Ethan didn't bother to read them. How many times have I sung? How many stages? How many times have I bowed to the audience? And yet, why do I still feel empty? He thought to himself. The door opened. His manager, Marcus, stepped in holding a stack of files. Ethan, do you know what the press is saying? Tomorrow's show is completely sold out. The whole city is talking about you. Ethan let out a faint smile, setting the glass down. Marcus, do you ever feel like I'm just a portable jukebox? Just press the button and it sings. That's all. Marcus froze. He had worked with Ethan for nearly 10 years, since the boy was just an innocent kid hugging a guitar, singing in a small cafe. He knew fame had changed Ethan, but he also knew deep down the young man still longed for something simple, to sing with all his heart. You're tired, I understand, but tomorrow night will be the biggest turning point of your life. Marcus patted his shoulder. Don't overthink it, just sing. Ethan didn't reply. He turned his face to the window where the distant lights looked like thousands of eyes watching him. Born in a small town in Ohio, Ethan had once been a shy boy who loved to sing. His father, a mechanic, often sat listening to his son hum self-made melodies in the garage. His mother, a diner waitress, always beamed, "Ethan, your voice is like sunlight. One day, you'll stand on a big stage." But when Ethan was only 12, his father died in a car accident. At the funeral, Ethan stood quietly and sang a halting song by his father's grave. That fragile voice brought his mother to tears, and it was then Ethan knew. Music was the only way to keep his father close. At 18, Ethan left town, starting out in dusty bars. Skinny and worn, he sang until his throat was raw for a handful of coins. More than once, he almost gave up, but a video that happened to spread online changed everything. Ethan's warm, husky voice touched millions of hearts. Within just 2 years, he skyrocketed. His first album sold millions of copies, concerts sold out, advertising deals piled up. But the more famous he became, the more he felt himself dragged into a merciless cycle. People called him the light of a new generation, but he felt as though he was slowly losing the true light inside himself. A year ago, he had a deep love with Lena, a young painter. Lena was one of the few who cared nothing for fame, loving Ethan simply for who he was. They once dreamed of a small house by the sea where he would sing to her at every sunset. But endless schedules, constant tours, and the press's suffocating presence crushed that dream. Lena left quietly. Her final words, "You love the stage more than you love me." "And I can't live forever in the shadow of that spotlight," Ethan cried, but he couldn't hold her back. The night before the big show, Ethan dreamed he was walking down a long, dark corridor. The walls were icy, silent. At the end was a brilliant halo of light. He kept walking, but never reached it. Just as he stretched out his hand to touch the glow, he jolted awake, heart racing. He sat gasping in the hotel room, sweat soaking the back of his shirt. "It's just a dream," he told himself, yet an ominous feeling stirred within. That night, Ethan sat alone with his old guitar. He strummed a few chords, softly singing an unreleased melody. "If tomorrow I disappear, will anyone remember me, or only the glittering lights?" His husky voice echoed through the empty room. He stopped halfway, tears falling onto the strings. And then, the next morning, he put on a sparkling white suit, smiling brightly before the cameras, as if there had never been a night when he cried alone. The audience saw a perfect Ethan Cole, but only he knew his heart had already begun to crack. The cheers thundered like an earthquake. More than 10,000 spectators sprang to their feet, waving flags, shouting Ethan's name. The stage lights swept across like white-blue lightning, tearing the night apart. Ethan stood in the middle, a radiant smile on his lips. But in his chest, an unusual pain was creeping in. He was used to the nervousness before tens of thousands of spectators, but this time, it was different. A cold shiver ran down his spine. He lifted his voice in the final song, the song he had once written for his father, never released. His voice was hoarse, yearning, silencing the hall as if everyone swallowed each word. "I'll see you in the light." Suddenly, his chest constricted violently. His breath was cut off, as if an invisible hand were squeezing his heart. "No, not now," he thought, trying to add another line. But his throat went hoarse, his vision blurred. The microphone slipped from his hand. "King!" The sound rang as if it struck straight into the audience's brains. Ethan collapsed to the floor. Shouts rang out. "Ethan! God, call an ambulance!" No way! Chaos ensued, people rushing onto the stage. Ethan could still hear, but faintly, as if echoing from a distant dream. He tried to open his eyes, saw the gleaming ceiling of the stage, then Marcus's face appeared, full of despair. "Ethan, can you hear me? Don't sleep. Hear me, don't sleep!" Marcus screamed, his voice trembling. Ethan wanted to answer, but his lips only quivered, no sound escaping. Medical staff rushed over. A doctor placed a stethoscope on his chest. A few seconds of silence. His heart has stopped. Prepare to defibrillate. Marcus turned pale. No, it can't be. Clear. Electricity ran through. Ethan's body jolted up from the floor. In that moment, Ethan felt as if his whole being was torn in two. A powerful force yanked him upward, separating him from his body. He opened his eyes and saw himself lying motionless on the floor. The whole world suddenly became strangely silent. No more cheers, no more heartbeat, only a distant sound like a bell ringing in the void. God, Ethan, come back! Marcus's voice choked with sobs. Ethan heard it clearly, yet it was as faint as an echo from the bottom of a deep cave. He looked down. People were gathered around his body, trying to pull him back. Sweat, tears, despair surrounded them. But he was standing there, a few meters above, completely free. Ethan tried to step closer to his body, but his feet did not touch the ground. He hovered, moving as if carried by an invisible current. The stage lights now became blinding. Beams of white light merged, opening into a vast halo directly above. Ethan looked up. His heart, or whatever remained of it, trembled. A strange pull drew him toward that halo of light. He tried to hold on, tried to call, "Marcus, I'm still here," but no one could hear. The sounds from the crowd gradually faded, replaced by an absolute silence. Ethan found himself gliding through fragments of memory. The image of childhood, the boy holding an old guitar, sitting and singing for his father. The day his mother held him in her arms in tears, after his father's funeral. Lena's smile, when she painted his portrait under the sunset. The empty nights in the dressing room, him sitting alone with a bottle of liquor. All passed by, like a fast-forwarded film. In that stream of memories, Ethan heard a deep, warm voice, unclear where it came from. "You have run too far, Ethan." He panicked and turned around, but there was no one to be seen. The halo ahead grew wider, so brilliant that his eyes could not bear it. Yet strangely, instead of pain, he felt a gentle peace enveloping him. Fear vanished. All sorrow, loneliness, the pressure of fame, dissolved like smoke. He whispered, his voice trembling, "Is this death?" There was no answer, only the beam of light inviting him to step forward. He drew a long breath, though he no longer had lungs to breathe, and let the light carry him. The light swallowed Ethan whole. He thought he would be burned, but he was not. Instead, a warm sensation enveloped his entire body, as if he had been placed into the arms of someone who had been waiting for him for a very long time. There was no more noise, no more crying, only a vast, luminous, white space, silent like the first drop falling onto a lake. Ethan floated, weightless. In that moment, he forgot that he had once been in pain, had once collapsed. A voice sounded, deep, warm, and familiar. "Ethan," he startled. That voice, too familiar. He turned around, and his heart clenched. The man wearing a faded blue shirt, hands calloused, but eyes gentle. It was him, his father, the man who had left when he was only 12. "Father," Ethan choked. The man smiled, stepped forward, and embraced him. Real warmth, not an illusion. Ethan cried like a child. Tears poured out, dissolving years of restraint. "Father, I miss you so much. Why is it only now? I get to see you again?" His father placed a hand on his shoulder, his gaze kind but stern. "My son, you have run too far from your own heart. You chased the light so much that you forgot why you began to sing." Ethan froze. Images flashed by, the brightly lit hall, the cheers, the lonely nights with a bottle of liquor. He was stunned to realize his father was right. "Father, but I've done it all. I sang for millions. I succeeded." His father shook his head, his voice gentle but decisive. "You sang, but you no longer sang with your heart. You sang to be loved, to keep the lights. But deep inside, you lost yourself." Ethan stepped back, pain constricting his chest. Footsteps suddenly sounded all around. Ethan turned. From the light, faint silhouettes appeared. A boy smiled, holding a poster of Ethan's concert. A young woman wiped tears from her eyes. An old man, trembling, leaning on a cane. They approached one by one. The boy whispered, "Mr. Ethan, your song helped me through the days I was sick. I'm not afraid anymore." The young woman choking back tears. "You don't know. When I lost my mother, your music was the only thing that made me feel not alone." The old man smiled. "I lost everything once. But every morning when I hear your voice, I find a reason to continue." Ethan was dazed. He knelt, tears streaming down. He had never imagined that his songs could truly save someone. His father placed a hand on his shoulder. "That is the reason you were given this voice. Not to become a star, but to touch the hearts of others." Suddenly, the halo of light in the distance grew brighter. From it, an entity of light stepped forth, its face unclear, only a hazy form, but it radiated such peace that Ethan could not look away. Its voice echoed in his mind. "Ethan Cole. You have come to the threshold. Here, there is no more pain, no more loneliness. You may stay, or return." Ethan trembled. "Return? But if I return, I will have to face everything again. The stage, the press, the empty nights." The entity replied, "Yes. Returning means continuing to suffer, but it also means continuing to love. You have not completed your mission. Your voice is still needed on Earth." Ethan looked at his father. His father nodded, smiling. "The decision is yours, Ethan." Ethan stood between two paths. The gentle, eternal light, where he could be forever at peace, reunited with his father. Returning to a harsh, lonely world, but also where he could continue to give music and love. He clung to his father, sobbing, "I just want to stay." But his father whispered in his ear, "My son, true love is never easy. Go back. Live a life worthy of the gift you have been given." Ethan stepped back, looking at those souls smiling in encouragement. His heart ached. He lifted his head, looked straight at the being of light, and nodded slightly. "I will return." In that moment, the light flared, sweeping him up. He saw himself falling, fast, very fast, like a shooting star tearing the sky apart. And then, darkness. The light gradually faded away. Ethan felt a powerful force pulling him downward. His entire body seemed to sink into a thick darkness until, "Heartbeat is back. Quickly, keep the pressure going." A shout rang right beside his ear. Chaotic sounds rushed in, footsteps, clattering metal tools, the hiss of a ventilator with each beat. Ethan gasped for air, sharp pain, like a blade piercing his chest. He jerked upright, eyes wide open, chest heaving. A doctor shouted, "He's awake! Hold him steady, be careful!" Ethan coughed violently, tears streaming down, not from pain, but because he was truly alive. In that moment, the images of his father, the being of light, and the souls he had met, all appeared, then faded. Only the echo remained in his heart. He lay still, tears running down his face. His body was weak, but his heart pounded fiercely. Each beat resounded like a reminder, "You are still here. You still have a chance." A nurse leaned over, her voice gentle. "Mr. Cole, you're safe now. Your heart stopped for 4 minutes, but you came back." Ethan smiled faintly. 4 minutes, just a blink in that other world. But here, it was the very boundary between life and death. He whispered, his voice hoarse, "Thank you. Thank you for not giving up." The door burst open. His mother rushed in, her face drenched with tears. She grabbed his hand tightly, trembling. "Ethan, my son. Oh God, I thought I lost you." Ethan looked at her, his throat tightening. He lifted his frail hand to touch his mother's cheek. "Mom, I'm sorry. I've made you worry far too much." She broke down, pressing her face into her son's hand. For the first time in years, Ethan did not hide, did not pretend to be strong. He let the tears flow freely, let himself be small in his mother's embrace. During the days of recovery in the hospital, Ethan was quieter, paying little attention to his phone or the press. He no longer craved the dazzling lights as before. One evening, he gazed out the window, where the sunset painted the sky in purple hues. He whispered, "I will live differently, Father." He recalled the faces of the souls, those who had said his music saved them, and he understood he could no longer sing just for fame. Music had to be a bridge, a gift. Months later, Ethan appeared before an audience once more, but this time not in a stadium of tens of thousands. He chose a small, humble church where soft golden light fell upon wooden pews. He sat before a piano, no colored lights, no fireworks, only a microphone and his heart. Before singing, he looked at the audience, his voice trembling. "Perhaps many of you have heard about my accident. I was very close to death, and I saw things that cannot be described in words, but I understood one thing. We live not to be praised, but to love. Music saved me. And if possible, I hope my music will save someone out there, just as it once did." He paused, inhaled deeply, then touched the keys. The music rose, not perfect, not with elaborate technique, but so sincere that the entire room fell silent. Many bowed their heads and wept. Ethan too cried, but those were the tears of someone who had just found himself again. The performance ended. Ethan stepped off the stage, breathing deeply. No more frenzied cheers, only hearts that had just been touched, and that was enough. He lifted his gaze to the sky, whispering, "Father, I have returned, and this time I will truly live." The gentle moonlight poured down like a blessing, and Ethan smiled for the first time in many years, a smile of true peace. If you too have had an experience that changed your life forever, share it in the comments so we can all listen. Don't forget to follow so you won't miss stories that touch the heart.